Hey y'all, it's history, and we are going to finish reading our book on the gold rush today, and so we're going to get right to it. Outfitting the 49ers. Something I thought of before I get started is that in Toy Story, one of the toys' name was the Prospector, and so now it can make sense in your head that he was probably digging for gold. Okay, anyways, back to our story. Not enough with my randomness. It's not a coincidence that Sam Brannan, the first person to announce the gold findings in San Francisco, was not a prospector. He was a store owner who later became a millionaire selling supplies to miners. The first miners wanted to keep their findings a secret, so they could each gather up as much gold as possible. But merchants, ship owners, lawyers, and bankers wanted to stir up excitement and attract prospectors who would need their services. From 1849 on, many people who came to California to dig for gold gave up their claims and went into business instead. Useful supplies were always in demand. One cargo ship arrived with a freight of ice, another with a hold full of rat-catching cats. Anyone who could sell something the miners needed did. Some people even assembled the frames of entire houses and floated them up the river to Sacramento. Others took supplies by mule team to set up shops in the camp. General stores sold the food, clothing, and equipment that miners needed. Here's a picture of a general store. You can see in the middle, if I could quit shaking, dry goods and groceries, wicker and cribs. All right, 49er fashion. You might be wearing a hand-me-down from the gold rush right now. Did you know that blue jeans started out as pants for gold miners? Levi Strauss was born in Germany and came to America as a teenager. When he heard about the California gold, he traveled west to open a shop in San Francisco. In 1870, Strauss and a partner, Jacob Davis, obtained a patent. If you remember the word patent, we've talked about that before. It protects someone's rights that invents something. So they obtained a patent for heavy-duty pants made from denim cloth and reinforced with metal rivets. Strauss's company still exists today as Levi's, and the jeans designed for gold miners are popular around the world. The 49ers needed tough clothes for the demanding outdoor work of prospecting. And here you can see the jeans. It said these early denim jeans from the 1870s are not that different from popular pants that many people wear today. How cool is that? Let me turn my page. Okay, here we go. Getting the gold. With a pick to chip rocks, a shovel to dig, and a large shallow pan, a 49er could get started panning for gold as soon as he staked a claim. No matter how hard a miner worked, though, finding a rich strike was usually just pure luck. Most of the gold was in tiny pieces, mixed in with rocks and dirt. Because gold is heavier than water and sand, it was simple to use water to separate gold flakes from dirt and mud. As time went on, miners began to dig even deeper, leaving the land craters with so-called coyote holes. So these craters that were man-made from them digging, they called coyote holes. So here you go. All a prospector had to do was crouch in a stream, scoop a handful of river mud into his pan, slosh around the water and dirt until the shiny gold collected at the bottom of the pan. This was called panning, or washing the gold. You can see a picture right there of a mining pan where they're sloshing the mud and dirt from the gold. This is called a cradle. Working with partners, a miner could process more gravel with a wooden box of rockers connected to a rigid chute. Because of its rocking motion, this device was called a cradle or a rocker. A larger version of the cradle was called a long tom. Okay, here's a picture of a mining shaft. Mining companies dammed rivers to get at the riverbeds. With big fire hoses, they used water to blast away at hillsides a process called hydraulic, that's a word meaning water, hydraulic mining. So they mined with water. Here you can see hydraulic mining. Here we go. Here you can see a hydraulic mining. Sorry, I turned it sideways. It'll probably mess up your, there you go. Hydraulic mining. He's shooting water like a big fire hose at the side of a hill. As surface gold became harder to find, deep mining shafts were dug, and steam engines were brought in to break rocks and dig tunnels. Big pounding machines called stamp mills broke up quartz rock for the gold within. So these would go up and down and beat it to get the gold out. Okay, let me hold down my page again. Here we go. Life in the camps. Life in the mining camp was dirty, smelly, and rough. 49ers slept in tents or shacks, and the camps were dusty or muddy and littered with trash. Most 49ers let their hair and beards grow long. They weren't too careful about washing themselves or their clothes either. Ew. Except for the few who brought their wives along to help. The miners had to do their own cooking, laundry, and mending. Like if they had a hole in their clothes, they had to fix it themselves. Their food was limited to what they could hunt and what merchants brought in, and prices were very high. A lucky miner might average finding between $10 and $20 a day in gold at the most, but often they found nothing at all. One egg or potato could cost up to 50 cents, and coffee was $4 a pound. Prices for tools, supplies, and animals were high as well. The 49ers worked from dawn till dusk, 6 days a week, but unless they were very lucky, it was hard to save money to take home. Here is a menu of example of what they would eat. Coffee, antelope steak, biscuits, whiskey, hot cakes, pork and beans, canned sardines, dried apples. If you can shoot an antelope, watch out for bugs. Okay, so the antelope steak said you got that if you could shoot an antelope. And the biscuit says that you need to watch out for bugs because bugs would get in the flour used to make biscuits. All right, on this page, around the campfire at night, the miners played fiddle, banjo, or guitar. They made up songs to cheer themselves up. One popular song, to the tune of Oh Susanna, had this refrain. Oh California, that's a place for me. I'm bound from San Francisco with my washboard on my knee. Okay. I don't know how to sing it exactly in my head. Oh Susanna, so I guess, oh California, that's the place for me. I'm bound from San Francisco with a washboard on my knee. I guess is kind of how it would go. Sometimes musicians and theater troupes passed through the camps and put on a show. Even bad singers always got lots of applause from the weary miners. The names of the camps and towns that sprang up showed both the hope and hardship of life as a 49er. So the hope and the hardship. The hope would be Gold Hill and Rich Bar. The hardship would be Poverty Hill, you bet. Okay, next page. All right. Gold, whoops, rang my bell. Gold in any language. About 75% of 49ers were white American men, but the rest of the prospectors came from other places. It was often said that in the gold fields, all men were equal no matter what their jobs had been back home. In California, everyone was equally crazy about gold. After Marshall's discovery in 1848, some Native Americans began panning for gold. But as more whites moved in, many thousands were kicked out or killed by disease or violence. News of the gold find reached Mexico and South America in the summer of 1848. Thousands of people who had mined for silver in Chile and Mexico hastened northward to try their luck with gold. Some Europeans who wanted a new start set out on the long sea journey to California in 1849. Many Jewish merchants from German-speaking areas of Europe became successful businessmen in California. Not all miners came of their own free will. In the 1840s, slavery was legal in the American South, and a few slave owners brought their black slaves with them to help dig their claims. Sometimes a slave found enough gold, though, to buy his own freedom. From travelers and letters, Chinese people heard stories of Gum Shan, a golden mountain, across the Pacific. They wanted to get their own share of the gold. Unlike the English-speaking 49ers, most of the Chinese immigrants were very poor. They could not afford the cost of a ship ticket, so mining companies paid for their passage in exchange for free labor. In 1852, more than 20,000 Chinese people had made the trip. Women of the Gold Rush. Less than 10% of the 49ers were women, but those who did chose to go west had a unique adventure. Mining in the goldfields was hard and rough work. No job for a lady, it was thought, although some tried. A handful of women were seen dressed in trousers and washing for gold in the cold streams. The women who did not prospect for gold made another kind of discovery, however. They found that in camps of only men, their skills were literally more valuable than gold. Women could do miners' laundry, cleaning, and cooking for good money. After seeing their success, men often gave up mining and went into business with their wives. In the East, sometimes laws prevented women from owning property and earning their own money. But in California, there were no such laws. One woman dressed as a man and drove a stagecoach for a while. Another made a fortune baking pies, while a third went into business as a portrait photographer. In the cities of San Francisco and Sacramento, women who owned hotels, restaurants, and theaters were prosperous citizens. Remember, these were different times, and not everyone was treated fairly. But we know better. The Golden State is born. Within just 1 year, 30,000 people from all over the world had settled in San Francisco, making it the most diverse city in America. Prospectors brought their languages, foods, religions, and customs with them. In their letters and diaries, 49ers from the eastern United States conveyed the unique sight of Asians, South Americans, and Europeans all doing business together. If a miner could afford luxuries, there were many places to spend his riches in San Francisco. Hotels and restaurants offered fine meals under crystal chandeliers. With gold in his pocket, a 49er could enjoy a hot bath, a play or concert, a night at the circus, gambling, billiards, and even bowling. The well-to-do citizens of San Francisco were eager to have an official government, and the United States wanted to have more control over the gold-rich territory. On September 9, 1850, President Millard Fillmore granted statehood to California. The citizens of the new 31st state celebrated noisily in the streets when they learned the news from an arriving steamship. There's their celebration in the street. Going bust. By the end of 1849, 90,000 people had arrived to look for gold in California. None of the 49ers became millionaires overnight as they had hoped. While the first prospectors in the summer of 48 had found gold fairly easily, by the time the 49ers arrived, the remaining gold was harder to get at. Many discouraged miners turned to crime. Prospectors now faced a new danger, that their land would be stolen out from under them, a practice called claim jumping. Seeing the elephant. Miners summed up their fear, excitement, hardship, and disappointment in the expression, seeing the elephant. On the way to California, the elephant represented the adventure and unknown danger that miners expected to find, but the idea was used to express failure too. And it was said of 49ers who gave up and went home that they had seen the elephant's tracks or the elephant's tail and had all the adventure they could take. Disappointment. Let me hold my page down. All right. Disappointment and tired. 49ers grew weary of the hard conditions of their work. They stood in cold streams all day, bending over to shovel dirt, enduring temperatures over 100 degrees in summer. Many suffered from bashed fingers or broken bones. The rough camp conditions gave rise to disease, and most every miner dealt with bed bugs, fleas, and lice. Tired and penniless, thousands of 49ers were eventually forced to give up and go home. Some got stuck in San Francisco trying to earn money for a ticket home and stayed on to work in the city or to start a farm nearby. I guess Joaquin Murrieta was known as the fiercest bandit of the gold rush. A Mexican prospector, it was said that white settlers had jumped his claim and killed his family, driving him to seek revenge. He was depicted as a dashing, mustached Californio on a horse. His scary henchmen had names like Three-Fingered Jack. He may have been a real person or a combination of different outlaws. Here we go. Out of focus. Here we go. The Gold Rush's legacy. For all the riches that were found in California during the gold rush, much was lost too. The miners killed or scared away most of the wildlife in the Mother Lode area. They dug deep holes, scraped away hillsides, and built dams, changing the course of waterways and disrupting farms. Although much of the gold-rich area was taken over by large mining companies throughout the 1850s, a few prospectors hung on to their claims. About $10 million a year continued to be mined for a decade. Other major gold rushes happened later in the 1800s. The Black Hills Rush, that was from 1874 to 1877, in the South Dakota Territory, and in the Yukon Territory of Canada in 1898. So here's just like a timeline you can look at. I'm not gonna go by each detail. San Francisco remains to this day one of the most diverse cities in the world. The independence and optimism of the gold rush days live on in its reputation for tolerance, ingenuity, and individuality. In memory of the extraordinary time in its history, San Francisco's professional football team is called the 49ers. The nickname of California is the Golden State, and the state motto is a Greek word, Eureka, which means I found it. Not every 49er found gold, but they all discovered adventure. And here's a glossary of words if you want to pause it and look at some words. You can, but that is the end of our history lesson for today. And see y'all later.